The time is just gone 9:35 a.m. as we continue with the show this morning. And we are now going to be joined by CEO of Penny Appeals South Africa, Shahnaaz Paruk. And we're talking about Penny Appeals Mozambique campaign. Shahnaaz, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu rahmatullah. Always a pleasure to be speaking to you this morning, Uncle Inayat.
Yes, wonderful that you are able to join us now, Shahnaaz. I know in the last few weeks we have been talking about, and one of them have been obviously Africa, and the latest is Mozambique and your campaign in Mozambique. And we know about the tropical storm that Anna, and I'm not too sure why they always name these tropical storms, after women, but that's a topic for another discussion. But this clearly left many communities devastated, without shelter, without food, without basic necessities. And just looking at your response as Penny appealed to this, Shahnaaz.
Indeed, I think, when Tropical Storm Anna first broke, there was a lot of talk around the perceived devastation, especially considering that a lot of these areas, you were talking about Mozambique, Malawi, Zimbabwe, a lot of them have been impacted by previous natural disasters, flooding, etc. And a lot of this is primarily as a result of climate change, the El Nino effect, etc. So when there was obviously news from our teams, especially in Malawi and then Zimbabwe, those and Mozambique, they had mentioned to us, the storm had broken. There's a lot of devastation that occurred. So the natural next step was for us to consider a response. What we did ultimately is have our teams go out onto the ground when it was safe to do so. We received loads of collateral videos, footage, showing us flooded areas and showing us how people had literally lost their homes, especially if you look at rural Malawi. A lot of them had lost their homes, lost their belongings. So our first response was obviously to be able to provide meals to those that were moved to places of safety like school halls, moved to churches in some instance, moved to masjids, just provide meals so that they were able to be sustained. And then we, of course, looked at the areas of villages we tend to work in. And we then went ahead. The teams were busy right up until last week, late last week, well into the weekend, providing food packs, providing some cooking utensils where required. Over and above that, we also provided mosquito nets. I mentioned previously that, when a natural disaster occurs, there's so much more that's required aside from the food element. Mosquito nets, obviously, because it's now malaria season within these territories, the people are a lot more vulnerable. And obviously, we want to be able to protect and give them some kind of protection against the elements until such time they build themselves up again and they get back to some sort of normalcy. So that's been our response, and we're still going to be monitoring it going forward, inshallah. As a side note, as you may know, Penny Appeals South Africa instructed quite a few water wells in Malawi. It's something that we do on an ongoing basis. And we had to make sure that none of these water wells were actually damaged with all of the devastation that had occurred and the flooding. Alhamdulillah, I think it's just one of our water wells that were damaged, and we're obviously making the necessary attempts to be able to rectify that and get the well back up and running. So alhamdulillah, I think overall a good response, thanks to the support from members of the community and the public who donated towards this cause. We're able to actually make a difference and help in some way.
Shahnaaz, as you were talking, a thought that had struck me is building capacity, particularly in the case of natural disasters and emergency response. Because when we talk about these natural disasters, they catch you off guard, basically.
Yes.
And you've got to respond very, very quickly, but also at the same time to ensure that you've built sufficient expertise and capacity to actually deal with the natural disasters, to be able to respond, urgently. And, we're talking about emergency response at this point in time, Shahnaaz.
Definitely. I think just those words that you've used, emergency response, that in itself summarizes it. When something happens, often in the sector, in the world, something happens, right? There's an earthquake, there's a flood, there's an explosion, perhaps, which is man-made disaster or natural. It becomes an inherent requirement to be able to respond in a timely fashion and a timely manner. And at Penny Appeal, the way we do it is we obviously create awareness around it. First of all, we let people know, we let our stakeholders, our donors, our volunteers know, look, this has taken place and this is the impact of it. We then need to be in a position that allows us to be able to do something about it. A lot of our staff and our teams have been trained in terms of disaster response and emergency response and preparedness. Preparedness is another big word. And when we talk about preparedness, we mean having funds available to be able to purchase the blankets and have them, stored away so that we're not waiting 24, 48, 72 hours, 1 week later to be able to just provide blankets or food packs or hygiene packs. We're able to literally, inshallah, provided that the situation on the ground allows for it. Sometimes, example, in Malawi, the teams had to wait for the water to subside before they could respond. It often means being able to respond in minimal time. And that's really crucial because when people are in need, if we can imagine if there was a flood that had devastated our neighborhood, I'll speak of my neighborhood. I could imagine that the houses would have been flooded. You would have lost all of your belongings, or most of them, or had it damaged. You have no means of cooking to sustain yourself. There may be lots of water all around you, but none of that water is deemed as safe for you to consume. So you need clean water, you need access to food, access to shelter. Those are the three main things. And, when people donate towards our emergency response fund, it allows us to make those plans and be prepared to be able to respond in minimal time so that we're able to help mitigate the losses. We're able to help communities that are facing this devastation and be able to respond in a timely manner. And that's so crucial. Even when it comes down to the planning and devising a response plan here, we're not waiting because, the office closes at 5, 6 p.m. We're literally working around the clock. We mean it. And I'm sure as are quite a few other organizations that do respond. Timing is key. Responding in time is key because literally lives depend on it and people are depending on you to be able to respond and assist them.
Yes. Now, this obviously includes the donor community with donating towards emergency response and looking at the donor community. How should they be responding? How should they be donating?
For this very same reason, we learned, it was, alhamdulillah, a really good learning curve for us when we responded to Cyclone Idai, which, if we think back, I think was at least 2 years ago. And we found that spreading the word and marketing our emergency response fund in a way that made people understand the dire impact, like I've just explained how urgent the need is, it's always good to consider giving towards these type of scenarios. Penny Appeal South Africa has an emergency response fund. We keep that fund specifically for when emergencies occur. We then access that fund. We look at what we have available in terms of resources. We look at what we have available in terms of funding. We try and respond as best as we can within our means. But we're only able to do that with the generous support of donors who are able to contribute towards this fund, who understand that things will happen in this world. It's a natural occurrence. And I just think we need to be able to understand we need to be in a position to respond. So the Penny Appeal Global Relief Fund or Emergency Relief Fund, definitely it makes way for a lot of people to be able to donate your sadka, donate lila, donate whatever it is that you can to be able to ensure that we're able to respond and help people and quite literally, inshallah, with the permission of the Almighty, save lives and change lives for those people that have been impacted by disasters.
Yes. Now, obviously, this is a major project for Penny Appeal this month, but also looking at some of the other projects, for instance, the current project, Shahnaaz, that are taking place this month. What are those?
Some of our current projects are specifically, we've now just come off the tail end of our back to school campaign. As you may be aware, that's our seasonal campaign. It focuses a lot on providing school uniforms, stationery, school shoes. We also look at assisting some schools with some resources that they may require so that they can obviously give learners the best educational experience possible. Over and above that, we've also been really busy all throughout the December period, since late the last quarter of last year, right up until current. We've been really busy implementing food gardens across schools. And this is a really, I love this campaign, because it's my staff ask me, what my team say, well, why do you like this campaign more than anything else? And I tell them, because it's cute. How often do you get to go into a school teach children about nutrition, teach children about food security. And we're talking about children that usually come from vulnerable backgrounds. Because you see, the belief here at Penny Appeal is obviously that the solution to food security lies with teaching people on how to sustain and nurture themselves, adequate nutrition, growing your own food. And we've managed to put this together in a project that rolls out into schools. It educates children about how to plant your own food, what's nutritious food, how to harvest your food. And of course, each school gets a food garden, which we hope, inshallah, sustains the feeding scheme within those schools. It's really important because, as we know, our Breakfast Club campaign covers providing children with access to a nutritious breakfast meal at the start of every day. The school feeding program, inshallah, with the help of the food garden, would be able to then sustain these learners in school so that they have a good meal, a nutritious hot meal during the course of their school day. So a really exciting campaign that's currently underway. We've also been encouraging individuals to donate trees as Sadqa Jariyah, donate towards food gardens, donate towards trees, so that we can plant them and educate learners about it. And then our child sponsorship program is also something that's really close to our hearts. We know, living in South Africa, we have perhaps one of the highest rates of orphaned and vulnerable children. And there was a very interesting statistic that the team had come across when we were reevaluating the project, that COVID had actually created a higher rate of child-headed households and orphaned children, simply because of some of the numbers of deaths. There was a definite incline in the usual, or an increase in the usual statistic that we noticed. And so as a result, we have now reevaluated our orphan sponsorship program, which was previously called Orphan Kind. We've now relabeled it as a child sponsorship program, simply because we believe that orphaned and vulnerable children do need support. By being able to have a child sponsored, it means that they have access to their needs as well as holistic needs, so psychosocial, educational, food security, clothing, inshallah, whatever else it is that we're able to offer them through that, working alongside with caseworkers so that they have the best possible, I would call it, support structure to be able to advance themselves and inshallah be well supported on our program.
Yes. Now, Shahnaaz, we know it's also the tax season. We're coming to the end of the tax year. And we know that many organizations offer these Section 18A tax certificates. Penny Appeal offers them as well?
We definitely do. Indeed, we do. We've had a lot of calls for individuals requesting for it and asking if we are. Penny Appeal South Africa is independently registered right here in South Africa. We're able to work across the African continent and abroad. We're also able to issue Section 18A tax certificates for your donations within line of the SARS guidelines, and we are registered as a PBO with SARS, or the South African Revenue Service. So we do definitely issue those tax certificates, and you're able to get in touch with us if you'd like to learn more about this.
Yes, and just some information, banking details, contact details, etc.
Definitely. So our banking details are available on our website, which is www.pennyappeal.org.za. There is a tab called Ways to Donate, and you're able to find both our Zakat banking details as well as our general contribution or general donation banking details. For the purposes of the show, I'll just read them out for you. For general contributions, it's FNB or First National Bank, and the account number is 627-347-92931, and that would be our general banking details. Our Zakat banking details are Penny Appeal South Africa, also with First National Bank or FNB, and the account number is 627-347-92478.
Well, Shahnaaz, Jazakallah khairan so much as always, taking time out, talking to us, and providing us with regular feedback and updates, and also looking ahead at your projects. So for now, we wish you well, and everybody else at Penny Appeal South Africa. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam. Take good care of yourselves, inshallah. Shukran. Salam.
Shahnaaz Paruk, CEO of Penny Appeal South Africa. We're going to go for a break. We'll be back.